Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new week out there so far. There is a few things to discuss in this morning's video, and the first thing we'll cover is current conditions, latest outlooks, and then we'll break down today's weather. And we'll break down the country section by section. There's multiple states we'll zoom into, get more detailed on that do have the higher risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity for today into tonight. In fact, we have an enhanced risk across areas of the plains, level 3 out of 5. So we'll get very detailed on that for you folks out there. After we get done talking about today's weather, we'll speak on update information on the tropics. Chantal, the leftovers of it, is now a tropical depression, and it is spinning across areas in North Carolina, especially Virginia this morning. And man, did it bring some significant impacts. I would say that Chantal definitely brought some higher end impacts than maybe what we were expecting. Some of these short range models and what they were showing as far as rainfall definitely ended up verifying. So more rain basically ended up falling compared to what was forecast. Now some people's forecast was probably dead on, but I did not think personally that 8-9 inches of rain had an opportunity to fall across areas in North Carolina, but it did, and we had significant flooding last night. We're still getting it this morning as many rivers are running well over their flood stage. So thinking and praying about you folks in North Carolina. We have a plume of rain in Virginia this morning, but we'll speak a little bit on that as we roll through the video. But Chantal definitely packed a punch, and I would say it packed more of a punch further inland. So just goes to show you that even some of these weaker tropical storms can do a lot of damage. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below, and we will have a Bible devotion at the very end of the video if you're interested in that. Let's get rocking and rolling. So we'll start off west to east. We do have some moisture and storm activity surging across areas of northeast Wyoming into areas of the Dakotas. So some storms up there greeting you guys this morning. We got some organized convection, shower and storm activity cruising to the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. A little bit of moisture up here into southwest Kansas also. Some storm activity dancing around across areas of Missouri. Still just dealing with the rains down here in central Texas. Just flooding has just been a big weather storyline over the last several days. We have the Kerrville flooding and the devastation that's occurred there with so many people losing their lives. Praying for you folks down here. And we're going to continue to get more rains down here too, and we'll speak on that when we get to the South Central timestamp version of the video. Got some moisture hanging out off the Gulf coastline, the panhandle of Florida. The remnants of Chantal are spinning around over Virginia this morning. And then we have a big slug of rain up here in Canada, and it's raining up here in northern Maine this morning, part of this system. So that's current conditions, the latest outlooks, advisories, watches, warnings, things like that. Flood watches for central Texas remain in place. Just a lot of rain continues to fall across these areas. Flood watches in place across areas of Virginia, and we do have flood watches up across areas of the Tidewater to Delmarva, all the way up into southeast PA and New Jersey. Heat advisories remain in place across areas of New England. Very hot, humid for this time of the year. Well, I mean, it is pretty much the hottest time of the year, but it's just hot and humid compared to your average conditions for any time of the year. But heat advisories up here in Washington. We got a lot of heat alerts across the southwest also, along with red flag warnings. Now, we give you an update on the Storm Prediction Center outlook. We do have an enhanced risk that's covering up a good chunk of Nebraska. It does extend up into areas of southern South Dakota. Very small section of northwest Kansas and northeast Colorado. Slight risk goes all the way up into areas of Minnesota, all the way down, and pretty much covers all of eastern Colorado and western sections of Kansas. Marginal risk around that. I do want to mention there is a marginal risk across areas of the northeast, New England. We'll get a little bit detailed on that, zoom into a few states for you folks. But let's speak heavily on this. What's going on with this enhanced risk today? Well, we actually have in the brown a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. So I'll zoom into that region. Here it is. North Platte, 5% risk of a tornado. 2% risk in the green color around this. And then the wind threat will zoom back out. If you live in that red area, that's a 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. The yellow is a 15% risk. But once again, black outlined area, that is a chance of significant winds, which means there is a 10% risk of winds exceeding 70, 80 miles per hour, and some of these storms will produce that. I mean, some high-end wind gusts capable of producing hurricane force wind conditions. So this covers up all the red area and then portions of the yellow. Remember, this isn't like, for example, in this case, 30 plus 10, which equals 40. Okay, these are its own two separate things. Okay, 10% risk of significant winds, 30% risk of winds, which is 55 to 60 mile per hour winds. So hope that makes sense. But the hail threat in the yellow, that is a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. But once again, we have a risk of significant sized hail, so 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger in the black outline region, with the black dashes going in between across this entire area. A little bit of a risk for flash flooding today, but you know, one thing that I would say is some of these areas have not got moderate risk. For example, we did not have a moderate risk of flash flooding across North Carolina, and we certainly had flooding that was capable of being high risk type of flooding criteria. But you know, it's tough. I mean, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. It's tough to kind of just nail down how much rain could fall off these tropical systems. Now, I'll tell you one thing. I am going to show a little bit more love going forward to some of these short range models like the HER model, heck, even the NAM, because a lot of times with these tropical systems, what I've been noticing over the last few years is even though they kind of throw some crazy outputs, like, I mean, several more inches in some cases than what's being forecast, sometimes they're right. So we're going to start to show you a little bit more love to some of those short range models. But and once again, for Texas, we do have a slight risk of flash flooding. Okay, and where's Kerrville? I believe Kerrville's down in here. Kerrville, you're right on the edge, but I mean, flash flooding is possible in the area. It's a very sensitive area right now. Doesn't take much. We don't need any more rain, but there is a chance of it for today in the forecast. And there's two areas to watch here and here. These two yellow regions. We'll zoom into this one first. This does include, you know, the Delmarva, areas of the Tidewater, up to Philadelphia, including areas of New Jersey, Southeast PA. There's a flood watch in place, 15% risk of flash flooding occurring. Same thing up here, including areas of like Pittsburgh and into Ohio, all the way up to just about, Syracuse, into the southern tier of New York, 15% risk of flash flooding. So let's go on and break it down section by section. You can see the remnants of Chantal moving through Virginia, heading up into that area. We'll break down in the northeast section of this video. Outside of that, guys, you know, the rest of the southeast, just your typical run-of-the-mill flow out here, typical summer type stuff. You see splotches of green and yellow. You know, I know it doesn't look very clear resolution-wise, but tropical tidbits normally isn't very clear unless you really zoom in. But what you gather out of this is just your normal pop-up, isolated shower and storm activity. Chances are your chance of rain is probably anywhere from a 10 to a 40% chance across the entire southeast. So you just don't know when a storm's going to pop up right on top of you. But it's going to be blistering hot across the Carolinas today. I mean, in some cases, it'll be 10 to 15 degrees hotter than it was yesterday just due to the cloud cover and rain from Chantal. But, man, it is going to, well, you're going to notice a huge difference today across areas of the southeast, especially closer to Carolinas. But, you know, you lose some of this rain. I would say there might be a higher chance of rain in, like, western areas of Kentucky and Tennessee today compared to everybody else, but we'll see. But up here in the northeast, a couple areas to watch here. We'll move forward. A lot of rain and storm, tropical moisture surging up through the Delmarva, Delaware, coastal areas of Maryland, all the way up into southeast PA and New Jersey. And then we have storm activity generated off a totally different system, cold front, and this will sweep some thunderstorms across Ohio, PA, New York, up to Vermont, New Hampshire, all the way up into Maine throughout the afternoon and evening hours. And this will be moving more so west to east. And then all this will, you know, move on through. But, you know, just taking a closer look at some of these regions. First off, we'll speak on the mid-Atlantic higher populated regions here. Starting it off around mid-morning, we take it to about early afternoon, 1 to 2 o'clock. you can see the thunderstorms developing. You know, I wouldn't expect any severe weather, maybe some breezy conditions, but the main threat with this kind of isolated blobs of, you know, yellow, orange, and red, just downpours, is flash flooding. Some of this action could congeal up. I mean, look, the entire state of Delaware getting heavy tropical rains around 3, 4, 5 o'clock this afternoon. So this could produce some really heavy rain, guys. So please be aware of that. And also up into New Jersey. Also, and we'll talk about how much rain is forecast in this region over the next 48 hours. And I mean, check it out. I mean, where you're in this red area, that's where over 2 inches of rain is forecast. This kind of blob of yellow right here, that is where over 4 inches of rain is forecast. So this entire region will get anywhere from 1 to 4 inches of rain, but more rain than this can fall. And, you know, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm going to actually show you what the HRRR model is showing. Let's see if it's, let's see how much rain it is showing in this region for today. And it's really splotchy, and this is a big reason why I don't show some short-range model guidance all the time, is because it's very splotchy. But it does, in general, follow the Weather Prediction Center forecast as far as rainfall. It likes this area right here for the most rain, but some areas will get 3, 4, maybe even 5 inches of rain in this area today. So you saw what just happened in North Carolina. If you didn't, for my folks that live in this area, just look in the news. I mean, big time flooding. I mean, houses are submerged, all that stuff. So moving forward here, there is a risk of some of these storms hitting severe limits across PA, even back in Ohio. I apologize, my Ohio folks. I don't have the state pulled up for you folks, but some storms could be there for you guys this afternoon. But it's around 5 p.m. We got some storms in western PA, and then some of this action will drift into central and then eventually northeast PA. As we get into the evening hours, got some storms kind of between Binghamton and Scranton. These could be strong to severe, and maybe some more storms will kind of funnel in here across western PA later tonight. But just watch out with these storms. They could pack a punch for sure. And then we go up into New York. Same deal as PA. You know, we start to get into the afternoon hours. Some storms are possible anywhere from the southern tier, Rochester up to Syracuse. It's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7, 8, 9. Could be a storm around Binghamton. Some storms possible up into the Tug Hill, the Adirondacks, Burlington, Vermont. And everything kind of breaks up. But it doesn't look super widespread in coverage. But whoever gets a storm, the atmosphere will be primed for some severe weather up here. Just a marginal risk in place. But you can get some big storms even with a marginal risk. But down here in Texas and the south central U.S., once again, just a moist feed. We'll get the rain going, downpours, tropical downpours across areas of central and eastern Texas. We got them here across Louisiana too. I feel like I haven't mentioned y'all much lately, or Mississippi, but just some summer-type thunderstorms popping up. You know, we stop it here. It's around 7 or 8 o'clock. It looks like widespread thunderstorms are possible across northern Arkansas, the southeast and eastern areas of Oklahoma. And we just got to watch out for this moisture. It looks to be centered further east, potentially. I would say a little bit more to the east, you know, compared to where like Kerrville is and stuff like that, which is an area that's going to be watched heavily over the next several days, just because we're hoping no more crazy rainfall happens there. But a complex of storms could fire out of New Mexico, sweep into the western areas of the panhandle of Texas. We'll watch for that. Then we get to the overnight hours, some rain dancing around Arkansas, and then we get into tomorrow morning and could do it all over again. But just a closer look at some of these areas. You know, this is Kerrville down here. I didn't realize in yesterday's video it was showing up on the screen the whole time, but going for about 0.3 of an inch of rain between now and the next 36 hours. But you don't have to go very far north, guys, and then you start to get into this area right here where they're calling for like over 2 inches of rain, 1 to 2 inches of rain in this purple to red area. So let's hope that the axis of this heavier rain forecast doesn't shift down into Kerrville. But just, it's important to have a reliable radar, guys, with severe weather, flooding, snow, anything, guys. It doesn't cost much at all, I'm telling you. You know, some people, I'm the same way. I can be cheap sometimes. I ain't trying to spend $10 on any kind of app. And I know a lot of people aren't trying to spend $10 on a weather app, but it could save you a life. And I'm talking about $10 a year, not $10 a month. But you can see areas of heavy rain across central Texas, really between San Angelo, Waco, Cleburne up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, axis of heavier rain through this area. So just want to show you a couple regions. But taking a closer look at Colorado, where the severe weather could be more so today, not necessarily flooding, but we kick it off around lunchtime. We get into the early to mid-afternoon hours, and we'll stop at around 5 p.m. If you live up there near Sterling, be careful of these storms. Any kind of other small towns and communities in eastern Colorado. You know, I saw where one storm chaser posted, I forgot where it was. I feel like it was right outside of Colorado Springs. You know, he was off on the interstate, and it was 6 inches of hail on the ground. And these storms in Colorado, I think Colorado is capital of hail-producing storms. It might not be producing the biggest hail, but it produces tons of small to medium-sized hail. It'll make it look like a snowstorm just rolled through. But we're going to get that in some areas today. This is 5 p.m. storms rumbling through, especially the northeast corner of Colorado. We're going to get some storms probably, you know, in all of eastern Colorado today, and then things begin to calm down. And then we take a look at Kansas, especially the northwest corner of Kansas. We get to 3, 4, 5, not a whole lot going on. Some storms, strong to severe storms possible. Could dance around from Manhattan to Topeka to Kansas City. So be aware of that. And then we get to 9 p.m. Here comes some storms surging into northwestern Kansas. And then we start to get into 11 p.m., midnight tonight, 1 a.m. You know, it kind of breaks apart, to be honest with you. So that's something to watch, you know. But I really think we have to watch out for the northwest corner of Kansas. But this is predicted wind gust off the HRRR model. Shows these storms getting quite intense as far as these wind gusts. You know, this kind of dark red burgundy color, that's where winds could exceed 60, 70 miles per hour. As I've mentioned many times before, sometimes the HRRR model overdoes this. But, you know, it also shows, let's look at Kansas. Wind gusts get pretty intense in Kansas also. And we're going to have to switch it to this. All right, we're everywhere. And let's go all the way out to the next 18 hours. So we'll stop it right here. You can see there is a hefty line of storms moving across northwestern areas of Kansas. So if you live in this region, 50, 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. There's an enhanced risk in the far northwest corner of Kansas for a reason. So take it serious. Big time wind threat up here for later on this evening. North central U.S., this will be the area we spend the most time on. We get into this afternoon, you see an area of storms in the Dakotas there on your screen. A little bit of rain shower activity across Minnesota. Some thunderstorms are possible in southern areas of Indiana. I want to make sure I show you guys southern Ohio. Some of these could be strong to severe. And then we got multiple complexes of storms out here. I mean, this is around 9, 10 o'clock tonight. Storms up here in northern Minnesota. Storms moving into the Minneapolis area. Storms in southeast South Dakota. Storms cruising across central Nebraska. Everything kind of congeals up in this area of eastern Nebraska. Could become a flash flooding scenario, but this is a lot of storm activity surging through, and then we wake up tomorrow morning to the remnants of whatever's left. But of course, let's zoom into some of these areas. Nebraska being first, highlighted state today for severe weather. We take it to about 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Big storms firing. We've already talked about Colorado. But this is where we could get a quick tornado or two today. You see, I mean, there's a 5% risk too. But you see how some of these isolated cells are firing here, here, here. So all the smaller towns and communities out here, be aware of a tornado, especially early on, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. These will be discreet. Now we continue to kind of move deeper into the evening hours, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. We got storms up here in northern Minnesota too. Northern Nebraska, you see the circles coming off these storms indicating more stronger, intense updrafts. Tornadoes are possible. But this cluster of convection and this one, will these kind of combine here? I think they kind of will. Some areas might get completely jumped. But 11 p.m., it looks like the northern complex of storms becomes dominant here. And these storms could just cause a ruckus late tonight. This is 11 p.m. Storms look pretty intense. They start to get close to Grand Island, starting to move through Sioux City. Later this evening, Omaha, Lincoln, watch out for a flash flooding and just a damaging wind threat overnight. This is like literally 2 o'clock in the morning, but a lot of this stuff shows to diminish pretty fast. But, there's a chance that, it holds together a little bit more. Now we're talking about wind gusts with this line of storms. It really thinks that the line of storms coming out of the west here is going to produce the more intense winds. And you can see these orange, reds, these burgundish white color, if you will, 60, 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. Significant wind gusts are possible, but some stronger wind gusts are possible up here also. Now, I will show you South Dakota too. We take it to about midday, just some storms. These storms, though, will become more intense in northern areas of South Dakota as we get into the afternoon hours. So Aberdeen, 3 p.m., show some pretty intense storms moving through your area. And these could produce some large hail, damaging winds, can't rule out a tornado. And then we have to just watch for a more organized, longer line of storms that sweeps across maybe the entire eastern section of South Dakota. And these storms will kind of link into the storms that really get going in Nebraska later on tonight. But the storms will be quite intense, getting close to Yankton, Sioux Falls, Brookings, later tonight around dinner time and just after. And then all this action will eventually surge out of the region. But, dang, it stinks. I actually took, for whatever reason, the HER model as far as wind gust off the screen for South Dakota. So that was my bad. Let's go down here. Man, come on, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? I think there's a tab for the Dakotas. Yeah, here we go. So here we go. My bad. Sorry, guys. A little off track. Haven't had my voice as much with these videos of the last few days. But you see some stronger wind gusts down here in eastern South Dakota, southeast South Dakota. Some tongue twisters there. So just be aware of these stronger wind gusts down here. Oh, it was right there. All I had to do was flip it. Jeez. Anyways, looking at, let's make sure we didn't skip. Yeah, North Dakota. Don't want to skip you guys. 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Get my face out of the way. This is around 4 p.m. I would watch really just the southeast corner of North Dakota. Storms could fire, and I would also watch eventually around 6, 7 o'clock some storms that could get going in northeast North Dakota. Okay, these could do something tricky. I wouldn't be surprised we hear about a tornado warning or two up here. So just be careful in those areas. Minnesota, we started off around lunchtime, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., just some showers out there. And then a more organized line of strong to severe weather could just impact the entire western counties of Minnesota. We got storms up here near Grand Forks going into the Minnesota area. Fargo, storms cruising into pretty much western areas of Minnesota. And then we kind of got two things ongoing. The leftovers of this storm heading towards St. Cloud, Minneapolis, Mankato. And then what looks to be more intense thunderstorms up here in northern Minnesota. And eventually, whatever's left over of this will hit Minneapolis later this evening, 10 p.m. or so. And then we're just going to get clusters of rain and storms that just cruises across all the northern counties of Minnesota throughout the overnight hours. And eventually, this action will try to make it into the UP of Michigan, like late tonight. But I think that it'll be weakened by then. And just to show some attention to Iowa also, storms are possible late tonight. This is like midnight tonight in Omaha, Denison, Lamar's. This is, like I said, midnight. Storms moving through the western areas of Iowa. This could produce some very heavy rain. This is part of that same cluster of storms that's impacting Nebraska. So Des Moines, Creston, maybe even Fort Dodge. Heavy rain and storm activity after midnight tonight. So, whew. All right, western U.S. Not a whole lot going on today, guys. I mean, we're probably going to get some moisture, some downpours that'll be out and about across areas of Arizona, New Mexico. We've already kind of talked about New Mexico with the storms. It could cruise out in the northeastern portions of the state into the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. But all of our other friends out here, the western U.S., you guys look pretty quiet. Temperatures. Check out this temperature gradient in Maine today, guys. I was checking this out earlier. And northern Maine could just be trapped in the 50s and 60s. There's going to be some sort of temperature gradient in Maine where you're going to go just maybe an hour or two and then get into the 80s and maybe even 90s, guys. I mean, very hot temperatures across southern New England too. Heat advisories in place. It's going to be blistering hot today, more than likely in areas of the Carolinas and Georgia. Just a weird kind of flop where Chantal was kind of saving us for a few days. And now we're going to heat up significantly across areas of the southeast. Luckily, this heat wave only lasts a couple days with the cold front moving in and creating a multi-day, what I think is going to be a multi-day setup for unsettled weather. But anyways, moving into the western U.S. and just run-of-the-mill summer heat. Nothing really wild one way or the other. I mean, but run-of-the-mill summer heat is blistering hot across the southwest. Dangerous heat. Now, one thing that I kind of forgot to pull up here is the threat of severe weather for days to come. We're going to do this on the fly here. There is a risk of strong to severe thunderstorms for tomorrow across a pretty large area of the country, just not a higher risk, but a pretty large area of the plains into areas of the Mississippi Valley. Runs a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather, a marginal risk. And then we got the dark green across the entire eastern U.S., just about all the I-95 corridor going from the Carolinas up to southern New England. We have a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather with a cold front moving in place. Now, any risk of excessive rainfall? I mean, there is, but nothing past a 5% risk. And then we look at the day 3 marginal risk. Cold front continues to move in across the eastern U.S., so we will have a risk of thunderstorms widespread across the eastern U.S., but some of these will pack more of a punch with a marginal risk in place. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather, and we do have a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather, marginal risk across areas of the Dakotas, all the way down into Nebraska. And there's already a 15% risk of severe weather across some of the same areas that will have a severe weather threat for Wednesday. This is for Thursday, so a slight risk, level 2 out of 5, risk of severe weather. So we have to watch Thursday for more of a higher end risk of severe weather. So update on the tropics, and then we'll round the video off with a devotion here. But Chantal, a tropical depression with us. It's moving northeast at 15 miles per hour, picking up some more forward speed, but it's no longer a storm. But this thing has caused us a lot of issues across North Carolina, especially. Hopefully it doesn't do anything crazy across the mid-Atlantic for today. But outside of Chantal, which will be off our screen probably over the next couple of days, there's nothing really to talk about, no areas of interest. I do want to mention, though, there's an area I'm watching maybe as we get into around this time next week. Same thing, I think some energy, and I think that's why we have the marginal risk in place over the next several days across the southeast. I honestly think that we're going to have some really unsettled weather across the southeast and the southern tier of the country. Numerous showers and storms, just a wet pattern coming up after these really hot days out ahead of us these next couple of days. Some energy, I think, as a ridge builds over this, kind of like what got Chantal going. Some energy could get trapped over the Gulf or off the coast of the southeast. And these yellow areas you see on your screen, this is just energy in the upper levels of the atmosphere. In this case, actually just at 850 millibars, so 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air. And you're going to see these wind barbs kind of spinning around down here. So this is something that could spin around too long over the open waters, kind of like with what happened with Chantal. And we could get a tropical system that develops in the northern Gulf. I would watch this. And this is kind of the attention models we're showing with what ended up being Chantal. Also, you know, it was just a very weak signal. And you just got to watch something. This is getting pretty far out. This is past 10 days. But there's something spinning around very broad down here in the Gulf. It's not Mitch saying there's going to be a tropical system in the Gulf. Man, I just think that people taking energy, it's just wrong. It's taking, it does say taking energy, taking information wrong. And it just baffles me when it comes to the weather. But anyways, we just got to watch some action in the northern Gulf over the next 15 days that could get trapped down there because of a ridge building on top of some lower pressure. Okay, so just something to watch, and eventually this spin kind of maybe turns into some sort of upper low. There's no point in getting super detailed on this, but if you look at moisture, one thing I want you to notice here is we'll start off this Thursday, July the 10th. Look at all the splotches of green and yellow and red on your screen. This equates to basically a lot of thunderstorm activity, okay? And, you know, we get into Friday, we get into Saturday, just a lot of thunderstorm activity Sunday. And then you start to see some areas of storms down here in the northern Gulf. This is for this time next week. So this is a week from right now, July 14th. And this is just something to watch. You're seeing plumes of moisture down here, and nothing really gets organized, but you see a 10-15 millibar low pop up here. Just one operational run, just some things to watch, guys. I would say nothing to be concerned about until we need to be, all right? But, I mean, this is getting all the way to not this Friday, but next Friday, July 18th, shows a lot of moisture hanging out over the northern Gulf, but it does show some moisture off the coast of the southeast too. So nothing looking organized, but just some stuff to watch. Now you look at the Euro ensemble, and it just shows like 2 members out of 50. So I mean, it's not getting a ton of support from the Euro ensemble right now. So that's all I got. With that, let's create a timestamp here, and let's make the temperature map the timestamp. So my Bible here. I did not do notes with this devotion for this morning. I actually found this scripture in church yesterday, but this morning we're in 2 Timothy chapter 4, and we're going to do verse 3 through 4. So 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3 through 4. So I think this goes a lot to what we see today. For the time will come when people will not tolerate sound doctrine, but according to their own desires will multiply teachers for themselves, because they have an itch to hear what they want to hear. They will turn away from hearing the truth and turn aside to myths. Okay, for the time will come when people will not tolerate sound doctrine, but according to their own desires will multiply teachers for themselves, because they have an itch to hear what they want to hear. They will turn away from hearing the truth, and will turn aside to myths. So, I'm going to just speak without looking at any notes, but I think this goes really well with what we deal with today, and chances are this has been going on forever. But, you know, people love to just believe what they want to believe. It doesn't matter what facts you put in their face. It doesn't matter how you explain something to someone. If it doesn't back their agenda, then they're not going to hear you. It's going to be like talking to a rock. You're seeing that a lot. You see it a lot, and I made a post about it yesterday, and I actually put that scripture in there. With the weather, every time it's significant. Now, this might step on some people's toes, and hey, we keep it real on this channel, right? But it happens all the time with the weather. I read the comments, and I just kind of skip right past them. But it happens every time we get a significant weather event. People use the weather event to back their agenda. And normally it's driven off politics. People, believe that the government drops 10 inches of rain on one spot. People, believe that a ton of people died because of the National Weather Service cuts that occurred. And people just believe what they want to believe. And they don't do any research behind it. They don't look for the facts. And I always think it's wild because, this is obviously a YouTube channel geared towards the weather. I always think it's wild that, people can just speak in such absolutes about the weather when, if we're being really real and truthful, they don't really know a lick about the weather. But they will use it to back what they believe. So, there's things that I'm closed mind to. Obviously, being a follower of Christ, there's many things that I'm closed mind to of what I believe. But, I would just, challenge you guys to, I'm not going to sit here and say, I would just challenge you guys to actually, before you, just want to speak so much on, just try to understand things before, you spit out information that you really don't know a lick about, nothing about, but you want to believe it because it backs your beliefs. I hope that makes sense. But, I've just been irritated reading some of the stuff about the flooding with Texas, and it's really sad because it's almost like people will, like on social media, it's like people just have like a paragraph lock and loaded in their draft, ready to just type it out. And at the end of the day, what's really sad is that, people don't, I really just and truly don't think people honestly even care that a bunch of people died. I just think that it's a situation that fits what they're supporting, so they're going to use it, death, misery, heartache to back their beliefs. And I think that's really sad, man. I do. I think it's just awful, and it hurts me, and it irritates me, and it annoys me. But, it's just the way it is. At the end of the day, guys, just, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just a frustrating topic for me, and I'm going to see if I have this in here. It's crazy. Scripture speaks on pretty clearly with some of these things. Sometimes you read Scripture and you're like, man, I gotta do some research on that. I don't completely understand what it's trying to say, but it says it clearly. But according to their own desires will multiply teachers for themselves, because they have an itch to hear what they want to hear. And I think that taking, the weather stuff aside, I'm also talking about, say, hey, when you're giving a friend, when you're trying to change, like when people are just stuck in a way of life that is really keeping them in the same spot in life. They're not growing, and they spend more energy. Finding excuses on why they can't change their life, instead of spending energy figuring out ways to improve their life. So what they do is they seek validation from maybe friends and family that are going to tell them what they want to hear, which is it's okay to stay where you're at and not grow. People are not going to like me about to say this, but I'm going to keep it real. People always are talking about, be kind to yourself. You're doing the best that you can. But my question is are you? Are you? And I'm not saying you should just beat yourself up and just down yourself all the time. But I can speak for myself. I talk a little junk to myself when I get in my feels, when I want somebody to validate the way that I feel, when I try to give myself an excuse to feel the way I feel. I don't know. I don't let that crap slide. So, I don't 100% back that little saying people say. You need to have people in your corner that are going to be sincere, that are going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And maybe what they're telling you isn't the best advice, but that's just part of learning and growing. So I don't know. I was passionate about that Bible verse. I'm very irked a little bit about just when it comes to weather and politics, and I'll just leave it at that. God bless all y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll do it again tomorrow morning. We'll talk soon.